you do not have to be a lawyer to understand Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law simply means if an aircraft part can possibly be installed incorrectly, someone will do it. Many times these maintenance errors are not discovered until the aircraft is in flight. As far as the pilot is concerned, this may be a little late and could have been avoided by maintenance personnel. This film will show you how Murphy's Law operated in some actual accidents and near accidents. The pilot of a modern jet was flying at 1,000 feet when the pilot of another aircraft radioed him some cheerful news. Your plane is on fire. Luckily, the pilot managed to shut down the engine and execute an emergency landing. In this case, Murphy's Law caused an in-flight fire. Maintenance personnel working on the engine stretched the O-ring seal over the filter cover in the fuel control and fitted it against the cover face. This allowed fuel to leak and eventually catch fire. Ground personnel could have prevented this accident by installing the O-ring in its proper groove, 1/4 of an inch from the inner end of the cap. An inspection for fuel leaks with the system under pressure would also have caught the mistake before flight time. Now here's one to curl your hair. A helicopter pilot was hovering above the ground when he noticed a violent vibration. Upon looking around, he was horrified to find that the rotor blade had completely cut off his tail section, leaving him with half a helicopter. This is not enough. It was discovered that the blade locking mechanism, although safety wired, had flipped open because ground personnel had turned the reverse-threaded horn locking pin to the right instead of the left. This allowed the rotor blade to work loose. Ground personnel could have saved $162,000 worth of helicopter by visually checking that the pin was properly seated, that is, turned to the left and then safety wired. Here's a case of a man who has a kick coming. A pilot of a jet aircraft in trouble decided to execute the classic military maneuver, get the heck out of there. When he operated his ejection seat mechanism, nothing happened. The cartridge failed to fire. Luckily, he managed to land the plane safely anyway. An inspection of the seat catapult firing mechanism revealed the use of a substitute safety pin, which was too long. When the arming bell crank cable was pulled, the long end of the pin would not retreat clear of the head, thus preventing the firing of the catapult. This, Murphy, could have been prevented by simple common sense. Use the correct safety pin. Don't use another type just because it serves the function of holding the firing pin in place. Case number 999 involves a pilot of a jet on a takeoff who noted that his airspeed indicator wasn't working and his altimeter was going backwards. This left the pilot with the unhappy circumstance of landing at an unknown speed. In a jet, this can be dangerous. The pilot came in hot and overran the runway. This, Murphy, was the familiar crossing of pitot pressure and static pressure lines. This is the way they were installed. And this is the way they should have been installed. This, Murphy, would have been discovered if maintenance personnel had conducted a ground check of the airspeed indicator and altimeter. Murphy's happen at sea, too. Returning to the carrier, a pilot noticed that his landing gear was not operating correctly. The starboard gear had retracted, but would not go down again. The pilot had to land on the port gear and the nose wheel. Due to the use of the arresting gear, the aircraft sustained only minor damage. This, Murphy, was caused by a maintenance man who connected the hydraulic lines to the landing gear uplock cylinder like this. Looks all right, doesn't it? The lines don't cross. Unfortunately, this is the way they should be connected, with the lines crossing. So don't trust a visual check where hydraulic lines are concerned. Run a functional test of the hydraulic system. That way you'll be sure the gear will work when it's needed. Here's one of the biggest and most disastrous Murphys yet. A huge transport was taking off when suddenly it decided to rise at a remarkable 70-degree nose-up climbing attitude. This threw the pilot for a loss, and eventually the whole airplane. On-the-spot investigation revealed that the elevator cables had been crossed during installation by maintenance personnel. This resulted in a reverse action to the yoke movement. If you pulled the yoke back, the plane would dive. If you pushed the yoke forward, the plane would climb. This accident could have been prevented if maintenance personnel had consulted the manual while installing the cables. And the error should have been caught by a proper ground check before flight. Here's the case of a pilot with a curious tale. As he lit off his engine, he noticed that things were warmer than usual. Flames were shooting out of his exhaust. Investigation showed that personnel, during a hot start inspection, had replaced the second stage turbine stator backwards. This reduced the power output of the turbine, causing over-temperature and damage to the engine. This could have been prevented by referring to the manual on the proper installation of the turbine. What are the lessons to be learned from the disasters of Murphy's Law? First and foremost is that every replacement part, no matter how small, must be installed correctly. If you have the slightest doubt about the proper installation, check your maintenance manual. To make certain you have installed parts correctly, ground check the operation of the parts. Make sure you do not cross cables, wires, tubing, or lines unless specified. Usually these will be color-coded to help you install them correctly. Remember, the important thing is to prevent the accident before it happens. If you find a faulty part, don't use it. Report it immediately on the simple failure or unsatisfactory report forms. These require only that you check various facts about the failure. Send it to the Navy Bureau of Aeronautics or the Air Force Air Materiel Command, and a thorough investigation will be made. Remember, aircraft are expensive, and human lives are even more so. It's up to you to help save equipment and lives, and make Murphy's Law merely a bad, bad memory.